Hey everybody. Today I'm going to talk about the most difficult thing I've ever walked through in my sobriety, and that is being the caregiver of somebody who was in a mental health crisis. I'm not going to disclose who this person is. I want to keep their anonymity, but I'm going to talk about my experience. When this happened in 2010, I originally was completely unaware that they were struggling until I caught them in self-harm. And it got really bad within 3 months, where they ultimately had to enter a partial hospitalization program, which they were in for 4 months. Within that 4-month time period, there was a stint in inpatient because they had a medication that they tried and there was a black box warning that occurred, and I needed them to be in a safe place because they were thinking of hurting themselves and the thoughts were very severe. There was also an attempt in March, which was 3 months later from when they began the PHP, and I remember absolutely sobbing. And when I was talking to somebody else, another loved one, saying that I didn't know if I was going to be able to save this person. It was the most terrifying and most powerlessness I've ever felt in my entire life. And my go-to when I would have been in those extreme feelings was drugs and alcohol, because I wanted to numb out. And it absolutely baffled me that I never had those thoughts. You know, when I was sneaking into their room on a morning basis and holding my breath to making sure that they were breathing. It's been a 2-year journey of 1 step forward, 10 steps back, mental health. And I'm also a mental health patient, and I'll talk about that later. But it was a very slow journey, as mental health can be from a recovery standpoint. And they're doing well today, thankfully, and they were willing to work to get better. It was a lot of hard work for them to get better. In fact, there was even a second stint in a partial hospitalization program because they started to backslide. It wasn't as severe as it got the first time, and luckily there was an intervention about to the midway point before they got to the point where they were self-harming or having ideology that they didn't want to be on this earth anymore. I remember when it was the first partial hospitalization program, and I had landed in a meeting, and it was just a really hard day because of the intensity of kind of what was going on. And I remember crying in the meeting, and a woman I had never seen before handed me her card and told me to give her a call, and come to find out that she had also walked through this with the ability to stay sober. And I knew that if she could, I could too. When it comes to the person that was suffering, it was approximately 2.5 years later, and I was talking to them, and I shared that, you know, if I was out there, I didn't think that they would be here anymore. And they confirmed that, you know, correctly, that if I had been drinking, there's no way they would still be with us today. So if something like this is a part of your life or has been a part of your life, and again, this was the most excruciatingly difficult thing I'd ever been through in my sobriety. And in fact, it was so traumatic for me being the caregiver and trying to keep this person here on this earth on a daily basis that I ultimately needed therapy. But if she could, I could too. If I can, you can too. Some days the best I had was to just not drink. But these days, as this person is doing well, I finally have a sense of peacefulness, but there's no guarantees that they won't be there before. That's just the part of the mental health that we experience if you're a patient of mental health. So thank you for listening, and I hope you do well and take care of your mental health if that's something that you suffer from. Thanks.